Okay, hello. Um, I'm just going to jump in. I always have a challenging time beginning these, so bear with me. Um, I want to talk about the path from the head to the heart and how time passed here in this realm, time lived here in this realm, fights against truth in the sense that it creates layers of illusion. Time creates layers of illusion because all of the core beliefs formed in childhood, all of the mental holography formed in childhood goes out on a scavenger hunt throughout the years and throughout the decades and continues to confirm these beliefs. So in a sense, you can think of it as a confirmation bias because your interpretation could be anything, but it happens to be what it is based on your experiences in the past that are now popping up in the present moment as sort of evidence. And when you stay in the same illusion year after year, decade after decade, it becomes increasingly difficult to see the illusion. It's our childhood wounds, including attachment trauma and various programs in this realm that create the illusions. And so I want to be discussing the path from the mind to the heart from an attachment theory lens because I find attachment theory to be a super useful lens for unconscious and subconscious psyche integrations. Um, Attachment theory, I want you to think of it as not something to identify with. It's simply a window to look through so that we can better understand ourselves and then do the inner alchemy work. Um, I want to begin with the example of being in a relationship with an avoidant or a dismissive avoidant. A dismissive avoidant can be the perfect catalyst for you as an anxious avoidant or a fearful avoidant and identifying psyche parts within the self, your mother father wounds, your inner child, anima and animus. It can be the push to move from archetypal victim perpetrator holographic mind interpretations into the heart center, which is the journey from the mind to the heart. I might even define the journey from the mind to the heart as being the journey from archetypal victim perpetrator holographic mind interpretations into the heart center. And I know personally, this was my experience with it, being in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant holographic mind interpreter, which catalyzed via metaphysical and hyperdimensional energies or egregores in my realm and assisted me in seeing what I couldn't see before with my own mind, because my own mind was projecting all of these interpretations. So sometimes, as source beings, we will experience full-on hellscapes if we are super stuck in a mental holography, but it's super useful because if we're stuck in wounded interpretations, we're going to be experiencing these cycling feelings of bitterness, contempt, anger, grief, which is all inner child energy asking to be heard, loved, and resolved. And when we do the healing, which takes time and requires much patience with ourselves, and when we choose to engage with our relationships as an alchemical backdrop, then what we notice is that the other begins to change as well via our perception. Okay, so it's not necessarily like your integration work, which integration is a synonym for healing, is a synonym for alchemy. Okay. It's not necessarily that your integration work is going to heal the other or change the mental holography of the other. No, no, that is not the case at all. But what happens is your interpretations of the other changes. And so then the way you show up in relationship with the other changes. And therefore, since your energy has changed, the third energy that is created between you and the other will now be different. So you can think of that as the baby. So you have your energy, they have their energy, you have your mind, they have their mind. And together when you dance, you create a third energy. Okay? So again, choosing to engage in these relationships, perceiving them as an alchemical backdrop via our perception and the freedom that we organically are offering the other now does result in the relationship beginning to change as well, just via the emotional or energetic shifts within us. And what's most beautiful, in my opinion, about this is that it is also a place to find out what we are really capable of as fueled by who we really are, as fueled by our source stream in terms of embodying divine love, if we choose with great intention and discipline and discernment to stop repeating the push pull, love me, I hate you, victim perpetrator patterns. Okay. It's those patterns that create our cycles. And we can think of these cycles as karma because it is our mental holography projecting forth this unconscious momentum that keeps resulting in the same energy again and again and again. And it's distracting. It's distracting you from who you really be and how you came here to do or to lead yourself. Okay. And that is the path from the mind to the heart, the truth of you getting through that mental holography. One function of this realm's holography is the distortion of romantic love. We see a lot of these distortions, for example, in movies, children's films as well as adult films, but really remembering that everything can be looked at paradoxically and that all paradoxes can be reconciled. It depends on the level of consciousness that we are viewing these programs from. So, on one hand, we could say that there are distortions here, distortions of romantic love in terms of how the storylines fuel cognitions around, the belief that someone else must fill a part of you so that you feel whole, cohesive, complete, resulting in a lot of codependence, resulting in this longing or a need, however conscious or not, that someone else shows up for you in a way that inspires you or brings in bliss moments or just generally helps you or enables you to feel safe and supported and loved. There's a spectrum to that. Um, but on the other hand, all of these films and all of these programs, even programs that we simply just see rolling out in relationships around us, whether through your parents, other elders in your field as you were growing up, they're all symbols for inner alchemy, for the union of the divine masculine and divine feminine within, because you embody both of these energies. These energies are a part of your source stream. And so outside of this realm, above this realm, in a higher density version of this realm, we're integrated with this and remember that we are organically whole and cohesive. It's when we come into the realm that the fragmentations take place, which is just the nature of the polarities, the dualities of this realm, source split apart, the elements split apart, prima materia, ether, source split apart, earth, air, water, fire, earth and water representing feminine energies, fire and air representing masculine energies. And I will be making more videos on this as I move forward here, but back to the distortion of romantic love. On one hand, it's a distortion, but on the other hand, there are also codes and clues dropped within those spaces, all symbols pointing you back to you. So you could think of it as going through the mirror of the other, the reflection of the other, and finding yourself on the other side. Um, some aspects of these distortions of romantic love are also installed shame holography, which are also a part of this journey from the mind to the heart, this mental holography, shame holography, getting through that, all created by attachment trauma, and then um, grown, expanded through cycles and patterns that result. So there's like this initial wound, and then each time there's a wound that catalyzes or triggers the initial wound, the cycles and the patterns expand. Okay. And so this can play out really painfully in relationships. I often hear words like longing, alone come up in my one-on-one sessions as relationship and emotional holography is navigated, but it's all pointing each source being back to self. And when we each do the inner work individually and with sincerity and understanding of the divine purpose, we begin to access true love, inner alchemy, and we begin to conceptualize of how amazingly, how beautifully we can all dance together then when we all do the inner work and do remember that we are whole and cohesive within. Something that I cannot hit over the head enough is this idea that it's very important to make this experience about something larger than ourselves, which is another paradox because I'm talking about how it's all you, it's all within, but you have to ask yourself the why. You know, what is your why? And so when you look around yourself at this realm and all of the adaptations of trauma and this mental holography and what they look like on macro and micro levels, systemically, individually, within relationships, you start to remember what it is that you are actually doing here, and you can begin to hook into your why. Um, and again, also hooking into that active imagination of what it will look like when we all are dancing together here in this realm from that space. So, I was actually just having a conversation with one of my children earlier today about this and pointing out how it's also important to have a lot of self-compassion because it is hard work. It is very, very hard work. And all of your mental holography is going to be highlighted. It's all going to be light is going to shine on it. And so all of these really dense, really challenging emotions are going to be coming up. There's going to be a lot of tension. You're going to want to resist it. You're going to want to run away. You're going to want to blame. You're going to want to feel like a victim. You're going to want to point the finger. And that's all okay. It's all okay. What's meaningful is that you're able to sit in those feelings with yourself and validate them. And this is where active imagination can be very, very useful. And if you're not aware of that technique, you can research Carl Jung, active imagination. It's a very, very simple technique, but it does require discipline to utilize it when it's needed. Okay. Um, Another really beautiful technique is to move the energy through your body. I like to use a drum, and I like to express to myself, I'm so sorry you feel, which are compassion keys. That technique, I believe, comes from Edward Mannix, I believe his name is. Um, find what works for you, but typically there's going to be more than one thing that is very useful in terms of techniques. Okay. Um, so a lot of self-compassion, it's not about simply moving into this stoicism and I'm so strong and I have so much courage. Yes, it is remembering that you have courage and it is remembering your power. Yes, it is. But it's also having compassion for the human experience and bringing both of those things together. Okay. And that's all going to help you hook into your why. Um, so I have some nutshell descriptions of connection and relating energetics from an attachment style framework, which is one of the lenses that I work from when supporting others in session and in teaching inner alchemy. I could relate all of what I'm about to go over now to elements. And again, that will probably be a future video, but for now, I hope that this will be useful in identifying psyche fragmentation. Um, you by now know the importance of self-awareness in this space. Okay, there are multi-layered ramifications on an individuated level and on a realm level. So we're going to start with anxious attached, which might also be called anxious preoccupied attached. So these are just descriptions that I've written down. I'm going to read them now. So someone who primarily manifests anxiously attached relating styles subconsciously perceives relationship invitations as opportunities to energetically enmesh. So attempts made by others to individuate or self-focus or self-improve might feel like abandonment and or betrayal to the anxiously attached. Safety and connection is felt only with complete merging. Lack of complete merging triggers emotional dysregulation and feelings of isolation or separation. One might idealize and place holography upon others or pedestal others. And by that I mean one might create entire fantasy characters that do not reflect the true self of the other as also a fragmented human being and um, instead reflects the subconscious needs of the anxious. So the subconscious needs of the anxious will be projected onto the other, and the anxious will perceive the other as meeting those needs, filling those needs. But there are other aspects to the other that are not being perceived. Okay. And so, therefore, extreme disappointment, longing, depression, anger, feelings of shame can result when self-created illusions are revealed. Sex addiction or confusion around intimacy and conscious experiences of intimacy can also be seen here. Abandonment and rejection related childhood redemption fantasies run rampant in the mind and are projected onto relationships. So, a redemption fantasy is basically when unconsciously or subconsciously one is attempting to heal, to correct an attachment experience that they had with a caregiver as a child. And so a lot of times what's going to happen is we're going to align with the very other, the very person who has the weakest chance of healing that attachment experience because it needs to be hard. The subconscious mind needs it to be hard. That's why it's a redemption fantasy. If it's not really hard, you won't be redeemed. So you will align with, you will magnetize with your electricity some type of relationship that even on me, perhaps on surface level, it won't be super obvious, but underlying the energy is the same as your experience with a primary caregiver, your mother, your father. And so it's going to be a really tough nut to crack. It's not going to be easy. If it was easy, it wouldn't be a redemption fantasy. Okay. All right. So dismissive avoidant now. So for the dismissive avoidant, invitations from others to emotionally connect are perceived as open, endless freeways with no stop sign. And this feels like chaos. There is likely a cliff up ahead. Withdrawal is fueled by fears of potential loss of self or sovereignty. No or very few overtures or movement towards emotional connection will be executed by the dismissive avoidant because this opens a door to potential energy exchanges with no end or boundary. So essentially, the dismissive avoidant adaptation fears loss of self and sovereignty. This is because in childhood, they learned to depend solely on themselves. Okay. So this is extremely fear-inducing. And because the fear also must be avoided, this is the thing to be avoided is the fear, so must intimacy. So emotional neglect of a partner will stem from protection needs of the false self. Sexual intimacy is likely going to be rationed, controlled, or engaged in from disembodied energetics. And if a partner attempts to open relationship improvement focused dialogue, conversations will sidestep truth as the dismissive avoidant operates from defensiveness. Okay. Many times the dismissive avoidant will come around, in quotes, come around with promises to look within, but rarely does anything change because they are cut off from healthy awareness of behaviors fueled by self-protection motives. And this can result in narcissistic scripts like gaslighting, etc. Okay. Now the fearful avoidant wants connection but doesn't trust it. Believes eventually the other shoe will drop, which will be experienced as attack, rejection, or abandonment. So someone running fearful avoidance adaptation holographic scripts will go in for love, pull back from love, go in for love, pull back from love. Okay, I'm going to insert this as well. Sometimes they will be able to see things very, very clearly and be very accountable and self-responsible. Okay, but then at some point, the inner child will trigger, which will result in the inner child leading again, which can come across as severe emotional dysregulation, can look crazy to other people. Okay. Um, the fearful avoidant doesn't trust self to discern healthy connection and therefore doesn't trust others to be in consistent integrity. Okay, so there is an unconscious or conscious expectation that they will be blindsided, and fluctuating perceptions of relationships and others are fueled by fluctuating emotional states. There is turbulence. Safe love feels unobtainable. High standards for self are often accompanied by shame-based holography, and they may walk through the world with hypervigilant, neurotic, and painful levels of self-awareness. This is a big one. Painful levels of self-awareness. We all know the importance of self-awareness, but by painful levels of self-awareness, I'm referring to the tendency to perceive one's self through the presumed or assumed eyes of others. Okay. which fuels self-disconnection and requires exhausting levels of mental energetics. More importance is placed on the feelings and thoughts of others than on the feelings and thoughts of one's self, except for when there is an emotional flashback, a trigger. Okay, and that is when the inner child will likely come up, and then the thoughts and feelings of others are only perceived as perpetrative. Is that a word? Perpetrative, villain type energetics. And so severe forms of self-defense, righteous protection, and boundaries will come up. All right, now secure attachment. So someone who has made the journey from the mind to the heart, we can perceive as securely attached now. So this is a source stream who values individuation and self-improvement, knows that self-expansion is paramount, and that meaningful relationships happen between individuals with developed and or developing selves. They understand that connection is a triangle. One bottom angle of the triangle represents one self-actualizing party. The other bottom angle represents the other self-actualizing party. And these angles are foundational. We might also replace self-actualizing with the word individuated or the phrase spiritual sovereignty. Okay. So those angles are foundational. And then the top of the triangle represents what can be built together by two individuals with strong connection to their unique essence. Meaning and worth come from within, not from anyone else. This is innately understood and embodied. We are self-responsible and accountable with enthusiasm for what can be built together. So this is a return to unity consciousness. We know that anything imaginable can be built individually by the whole self. This is your creatorship, but creating with others inside connection is celebratory and enjoyable. So it's not mandatory to feel whole, but it is the nature of unity consciousness. It is cohesive nature. When earth, air, fire, and water merge, that is nature, and you are nature. Projections onto others are identified and processed and alchemized into your power. An enmeshment in codependent relationship holography is observed in the self and the world. It is neutralized within via inner work, and then speaking from the heart space and acting from the heart space. So how you communicate and also right action, which are your behaviors. Healing is gathering all the feelings and thoughts and memories that told you that you were broken, okay? And revisiting them and then transmuting them. We are using our relationships, which have been created inside realm holography of separation consciousness, to become certain without a shadow of a doubt that we are whole and complete as we are, which is the journey from the mind to the heart and is the return to unity consciousness. Okay, so healing or integration or transmutation or inner alchemy, it's not fixing what is broken in ourselves. It's remembering that we were never broken in the first place. Okay, so the external will reflect what is not internal so that you can learn to hold yourself and encase you with who you are and what you want to see here. Calling your energy back to you, determining how you want to use it. I am the teacher, I am the wisdom, I am the healer. bringing in balanced air energy, balanced thought energy, so that you're no longer giving authority away via your assumptions or identifications that negate who you are, or giving so much power to your feelings, to your emotional experience. Feelings and our emotional experience are not to be bypassed. That is not what I'm saying, but I'm talking about not identifying with them because that is a part of the holography here. Okay. So this is about integrity, aligning with our authentic selves. All right. Um, I guess that is all that I wanted to say today. Um, I mean, I could go on, but I don't even know how long this is. Before I check out, though, note the cat, cat, perhaps like the highlight of this video. I don't know. She's so cute. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you would like to work with me, please reach out. Um, I love one-on-one sessions. I find them to be immensely transformative. Um, I also offer an online workshop, and I will post information about both of these things in the notes below. Okay, lots of love.